I said, some guy in the UK wants us to score or wants us to do a song for a video game. And Leah and I both were like, nah, like, that's probably not going to happen. And I remember we both at separate times, if I recall correctly, felt God saying, you need to do this game thing.
Why don't you guys start by introducing yourselves?
I'm Jesse. This is my wife, Leah. We play music and do ministry under the name Poor Bishop Hooper.
Excellent.
And is that what you're looking for, Andy?
That's perfect. Yeah, I'm Andy as well. And yeah, we've had the privilege of working together on this game called The Serpent and the Seed, which, if you don't know, is like a mobile adventure game, but exploring the big story of the Bible. And a massive part of it that makes it so special is Jesse and Leah's amazing music. So yeah, it's really fun to get to talk to them. And I'd love to just ask like a bit about the sort of heart behind your music, really. So like, what motivates you guys as you make music, and yeah, what's your music about?
I think we primarily just love the Lord, and we want to make music that is excellent and captivating and beautiful, but also is deeply rooted in Scripture. Not necessarily just our own ideas or our own interpretations, though I'm sure that trickles in to some degree, but just a desire to create beautiful music that is founded in the Word, with the goal that people love the Word more.
And that was one of the reasons that we felt a yes, I think, with your project, was how much this game, which we're not familiar with video games. Our kids don't play video games, that kind of thing.
They played this.
They played this one. They played Serpent Seed. It was the only one they played. But they, because of how rooted it was in Scripture and how the story you were telling and how sweet all of even your kind of ideas and designs were.
Yeah. I mean, I really remember talking about that when we first met online, Jesse, that like, I think with The Serpent and the Seed, I knew like right from the start, like the whole kind of premise of the game relied on it being done really well, really beautifully, really wanted people to sort of experience the kind of wonder of the Garden of Eden and the kind of tragedy of being ripped out of the garden. And it hinged on, if it was a bit tacky and a bit sort of naff, and like, it's just no one was gonna want to play that. You weren't going to experience those emotions, and that seemed to really resonate with I think your tagline on your website is like, for glory and for beauty, isn't it? Like that kind of quote from is it Exodus about like the priestly garments and things were made and for both for glory and for beauty. Like, I'm really curious just to ask you guys a bit about the backstory of Poor Bishop Hooper. Like, how did you guys meet? I really want to know, like, which came first, the kind of the music or the marriage, like chronologically, I mean.
There you
go. We met working at a tiny church camp in southeastern Kansas. It was my first summer there and Jesse's last, and a mutual friend of ours told Jesse, hey, how about you ask this girl to sing on the worship team? Because Jesse was the worship director that summer. So he asked me. So the music came first. I do recall very specifically the first time we sang together, sitting on the ground in this tiny A-frame chapel in the middle of the woods. I remember thinking, wow, this is really fun. This guy's fun to sing with.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, a year later, Jesse tagged along on a missions, like a missions trip that I was going through our school. We were going to Thailand, and I was the leader of the trip that year, and I needed an assistant. And I had also gone the summer before, and Jesse had shown interest, so I asked him if he wanted to tag along, and he said yes. And so we did music together, and then we did missions together, but it wasn't for another
multiple years,
2 years at least, till we started actually dating. But we're friends through that time, and interest, I think, at least on my side, was continually growing over those years. And then we just kept moving along, and here we are.
Yeah.
And then Poor Bishop Hooper as a band started after we got married, and we were doing a bunch of home church ministry and leading worship at this church in Kansas City, which is where we moved right when we got married, and wanted some other expression musically, and then needed to feed our twins that were coming, because we had that first record was released before they were born, but you were pregnant, right? So anyway, we needed a band name, and she was playing upright bass and I was playing guitar, and we were doing a bunch of kind of duo, old swing and jazz, old country, 30s and 40s type music, just to pay the bills alongside this ministry job. So that's kind of where the band started, and since then the Lord has taken it into a bunch of other directions we never expected.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and a very kind of fruitful partnership, clearly. So, something I get asked on your behalf all the time is, where does the name come from?
Well, that was part, we needed a name for this record, and part we had a friend who suggested it. We were going through Fox's Book of Martyrs in the seminary I was in at the time, and so we had discussed Bishop John Hooper, the Anglican, over there in England, 1555, I think it was, that he was burned at the stake by Queen Mary. And the recounting of his story is such that I guess they light the fire on his, and he was against the having to do the sacraments in the vestments. That was his main thing, the vestment controversy. You probably know about more of this than I do, being English.
It's funny being taught English history by an American, but I think you're doing a great job.
But he wanted to do communion and stuff without wearing all the robes, and that was one of the things he was tied in. He's early reformer, but in that they caught him and they burned him alive, but I guess they lit the sticks, under his feet, and it kind of burned up his feet, and then the wind blew it out, and then they lit him again and they were wet. So it kind of burned his legs and it went out again. And by the end of it, he was doing the Stephen thing and forgiving everyone, but he was also asking, like, can someone here light a fire, please, and get on with it? So super sad and just kind of tragic martyr. And so this friend of ours had this funny idea, like, name your band that, it'll be an interesting name. Because we wanted a name that would start conversations, but not be really, Christian on the nose, if you will.
Yeah.
And we've had gobs of conversations about that band name. Even a really ridiculous story on the live news, TV news here in Kansas City, where we were quickly, shoveled off after the main guy didn't like our response about Jesus and faithful men of God. So, but yeah, it's done what it's needed to do, and we've had a lot of conversations about Christ with people who normally don't talk about that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, amazing.
Abraham fathered Isaac, Isaac fathered Jacob, then Jacob fathered Judah and his brothers.
Yeah, I mean, I came across you guys from the Gospel Coalition shared that sort of Advent concert you did with the genealogy of Jesus from Matthew's Gospel, and it really stood out to me because, like, Matthew's Gospel, well, the genealogy in particular, it doesn't sound like very kind of promising source material for a beautiful song, and yet I mean, particularly coupled with their blog posts they did about, the way the genealogy, even in the way it's sort of who it chooses to include and how they're described, like, it doesn't kind of gloss over the ugly parts, but you'd managed to turn it into this incredibly beautiful song, and just your whole demeanor and the way you kind of sang it clearly was like not just a performance, but like a kind of an expression of worship, and yeah, it really kind of really stuck in my mind.
Early on in our marriage, I think we'd been married for a couple of months, and we went to a choral performance at some beautiful church in downtown Kansas City. And one of the songs they sang was all genealogy, not the Matthew one, but the other one that goes back Adam, who was the son of God. So different order. And I remember that night us both being like, that was beautiful. It was so lovely. Wouldn't it be cool to write a genealogy song one day? And then fast forward, I don't know,
Years.
8 years, 10 years.
Not that.
We were doing, that Advent project, and each one of the songs co-aligns with the tradition of lighting the candles, the Advent candles. And we got to the Christ one and we're like, well, what do we do? I think it's time to write a genealogy song.
Amazing.
And it's one of my favorites. It's
definitely
it's one of my favorites.
Definitely. And I think that kind of live performance is just especially amazing. So yeah, just loved it. I still do.
Well, that's what's funny about that too, because those are single takes. None of it's overdubbed or anything. We just had our friend record it twice and we picked the better one. But we get asked often, will you come and perform these? And we always say, no, we can't. They're way too hard. I mean, there's so many things going on with the loopers and all the different instruments and all the stuff. We were like, it would take, months and months to get that back to where we need it to be. And if it had to be long enough for a concert, we'd have to do that another 10 times and not going to happen. So we still have not performed it in front of people ever.
Amazing. You've touched on this a bit, but I'd love to sort of hear like, what made you say yes to working on this crazy project? So I know, like, from my point of view, I'd heard that song, I think just at the point where I sort of thought I would love there to be some songs in this game. I'd heard a few really kind of, I'd heard your song, I'd heard a few other really beautiful like songs about the Bible, and I just thought there's something so powerful about music for kind of engaging people's emotions and kind of communicating scripture in a way that doesn't feel like, especially if you're not a Christian, I suppose, but it doesn't feel like really preachy, and but communicates what's going on behind the scriptures. And so I reached out to you. I thought, I have no idea if you guys do music for other people, like commissions. I had no idea if you probably weren't into computer games, but I've just I reached out to you. I said we're trying to make this game about trees in the Bible. Would you be interested? And I think I was just amazed that you replied at all, but you actually seem to reply really quickly, as far as I remember. Like, tell me the story from your perspective of like, what on earth made you respond? Why were you interested in this?
Well, it's funny because I remember getting your email and telling Leah later that evening. I said, some guy in the UK wants us to do a song for a video game. And Leah and I both were like, nah, that's probably not going to happen. Because we were in the middle of every psalm at that point. So we were releasing a song every week, every Wednesday, starting at Psalm 1 and ending at 150. So it was kind of more of in my practical mind, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
We're not familiar with, game industry, game music and because I know it's different. Her brother's really into like making games and computer games and stuff. And so I know a little bit through him. I knew it would be really different, not in our normal thing. And so my first thought was, I'll just be nice and get some more information. And then it really felt like, we try and do everything, every choice we make, whether it's what project to do next or how to spend our time on a day or where to play concerts or where not to. We just ask the Lord and say, God, you want me to do this? You want us to do this? And I remember we both at separate times, if I recall correctly, felt God saying, you need to do this game thing. Because I remember I circled back with you because you just asked about doing one song.
Right, yeah.
And so my concern became, well, if we do one song, well, who else is doing all the other songs?
Yeah.
And how's it all going to look? And I remember your response being kind of, if I recall, was, well, we don't know yet, but I'm sure you don't have the time. And then I thought, the hook is in. I'm caught. Go ahead.
I think what I recall from all of that too was the particular idea of being tree related. I love the earth. I love growing things and learning about what comes out of the ground and what flies through the air. And I had recently, before I think this ask, I had gone through, just reading through the Bible. I like to start Genesis, go all the way, and then just start back over. And at one point, whenever I read through it, I kind of am like treasure hunting. for specific things. And not long before our conversation with you, I had gone through the Bible, particularly noting every time a tree was referenced. And the one that stuck out particularly was, I can recall 3 instances that the tamarisk tree is particularly mentioned. And the Lord meets with these people. I think it's Abraham, and then who's Ishmael's mother? Hagar and Job. And I could be wrong from what I recall, but they all meet with the Lord and are seen under this tamarisk tree in beautiful ways. And I think for me, that was affirmation. We love partnering with artists. And in the past, it's been visual, whether that's painting or, I don't know, other like printed art. We like to partner with people that have like minds and that we overlap naturally, that it's not a push to work together, but it's just a good collaboration. And I feel like when Jesse mentioned that in particular, it struck as this feels like it kind of falls into a natural thing that we're talking about already. And we love partnering with other artists just to bring 3 dimension to the beauty of the Lord. And so I think that was one big thing that pushed me into thinking this is a really good thing to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was just an amazing, like, collaborative thing. I don't think, none of us could have come up with any of it like on our own. And I'd been thinking about it, obviously, and particularly been looking at that, like, promise from Genesis 3 of like the seed of the woman who crushed the serpent. And I suppose it was the first time I'd really thought of it as this, like, seeds are. It's like it's not just it's not just offspring. It is deliberately a sort of tree-like or plant-like kind of image. And but actually there's a lot of trees in the Bible, isn't there? Like, you obviously start with these 2 trees, the tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the Bible ends with back at the tree of life. And then there's so many other trees. The cross of Christ is described as Jesus being hung on the tree. And I'd put out a message on Twitter saying, like, has anyone ever done or come across a kind of biblical theology of trees? Because I thought, somebody must have thought about this. And a friend put me onto the Bible Project who'd done a podcast series called The Tree of Life. That wasn't one of your songs on what I feel like.
I don't know if it was that. Was it on that? So I can't remember which segment it was on. We've had a few songs that they've used, which is great.
Yeah,
those guys are
I
awesome.
can't remember if it was that one exactly, but it could well have been. But they're kind of, it was a fascinating podcast, but their hypothesis was that basically at every key turning point in the Bible story, there's a tree. And they went through some of the examples. And but, obviously loads of Abraham's big promises are given by trees. And then, we talked about Jesus. But I was looking at the David narrative, like David and Goliath. I was thinking, where are the trees in David? And because I've spent a lot of time in that passage for another game project I was working on years back. But, when I dug into it, you've got this sort of David on one side or the Israelites on one side of the valley, and Goliath on the other side of the valley of the Philistines. And it's called the Valley of Elah in the middle. And I thought, well, what does Elah mean? Look at the footnote, lo and behold, it's terebinths. So, like, presumably the kind of images in the bottom of this valley, you've got all these terebinth trees. And I just thought, well, it's amazing that there's all these little connections. And
it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse, perhaps this one's particularly for you because you did the bulk of the actual kind of work on the songs. But, like, what was the experience like for you, kind of being involved in this, like, writing these songs? What was the process?
This is fun. I was just telling 2 friends at a studio yesterday. They were asking about all this, and I said it ended up being a really sweet, creative moment, because every psalm, what we were doing at the time, and we were doing for 3 straight years, was drawing straight scripture as best we could from these psalms, and then this became a totally other, like, creative flex, if you will, or creative exercise, because most of it was instrumental. We had to have it all be loop based, which I hadn't done a lot of that kind of writing before, just so that the character or the player can play a certain segment as long as they want. There's no definitive ending to the song, so it has to be able to go on and on and on, which is a different kind of writing. And so it ended up being really life-giving to me to do all these instrumentals, particularly as you and I would talk and we would discuss ideas and, hey, what does this need to feel like? Creating a kind of sonic palette, these, similar instruments that I was going to in all the different acts and throughout the whole, I don't think I thought it was going to take as long as it did.
No.
But
don't think any of us really could have appreciated what a massive kind of scope it would turn out to be, but
it was fun. I remember going back to this document, this Google Doc that had all of this. Hey, here's the kind of samples and instruments I'm using for this. Here's what I'm using for this or that or the other. And so it ended up being a really fun and enjoyable exercise. And then when those moments where the lyric songs came through, I think that because we'd done kind of everything building up to those, they felt way more. There's a lot more gravitas on them because it was like there's a bunch of words caught up in all these other songs that we didn't get to sing. And then on the few that we did get to sing, now there's weightiness to it. So the whole process was much more enjoyable than I thought. I didn't think it was going to be awful, but and working with you has just been nothing but a treat. So it was really great. And it was fun getting to explore different things that I don't normally do. And think about different ways to approach these Bible stories in only instrumental song. So
yeah. No, I mean, I think if any of us had realized just how big it would turn out to be, you almost certainly would have said no up front, wouldn't you? But I'm so glad it was kind of enjoyable and fun for you as well, and it was certainly a real joy for me. I want to talk a little bit about some of those songs with lyrics, because I really loved that kind of collaboration on those songs, of how I think I would often come up with these little kind of brain dumps of a little kind of sketch of the kind of shape I imagine the song taking. And I'm definitely not much of a poet, but I love sort of seeing how you would kind of take those raw ideas and turn them into something beautiful and coherent. But it was also really fun sort of seeing how you could also recognize some of what I'd kind of laid down in the final song. What do you remember about that kind of actual songwriting process?
I think that one of the best things with that was hearing from you, because you'd spent so much time both in the passages and in the creative ideas. I remember clearly when you sent that imagery of Abraham walking Isaac up the hill and the light coming and the sticks that Isaac's holding becoming a shadow that matches the crucifix, or Jesus carrying his cross up the hill. And I remember going down and telling Leah multiple times, that's just so smart. That's so creative, nailed on the head. And there's wit to it that's really great. And so I remember asking you anytime there was a lyric song, please tell me as much as what you're thinking. Give me your ideas, because it was really helpful. And I remember by the terebinth tree, by the tamarisk tree, that one with the lyrics in there, having that kind of these tree refrains throughout. I don't think I would have thought to go that direction. And so it made for a super fun collaborative thing, because usually the only person I'm collaborating with lyrically is her, and which is wonderful. But it was fun because I think we'd had enough kind of under our belt, and there's enough trust, because we don't, we've been in the kind of songwriting session thing where, people gather these writers who don't know each other to write songs, and it's usually for some purpose. And we don't tend to operate in those spheres intentionally, but it was fun, with you and you admitting, hey, I'm not the one, I don't want to craft the lyrics or be the poet in this. Here's my thoughts, and just taking those and kind of working them and then sending them back to you. And I remember a couple of moments being, hey, what if we change this, or what if we shift it? And it ended up being it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, that song in particular is just, well, they're all amazing, aren't they? But that was such a team effort, that one, because that idea of the Isaac kind of casting the shadow of Jesus. I mean, that came from our game designer Dan, and then Daniel Starling, our concept artist, produced this amazing sort of sketch of what that could look like. And I know, it was really I felt like everyone on the team really inspired everyone else. Like I think you guys obviously sort of saw that artwork before writing your music, but then we'd get back your song, and then that would really, that would really inspire us for doing the next bit. Or like when we came to do the artwork, we already had the song, and so it was just, yeah, it was great. And I listened back recently to a sort of early. I think you'd done a really rough kind of first take with the kind of first draft of the lyrics, and in many ways it is actually so different from how its final form. I mean, I think we swapped around various lyrics and just those different trees, like, but and yet clearly the kind of idea was there. And
by the terebinth tree, when I had no seed, you promised my offspring this land forever. By some terebinth trees with still no seed, you promised I'd have more than the stars of heaven.
Yeah, I think the songs work so well to just, well, I mean, my wife always talks about how they, gives her goosebumps listening to some of them. Like they're really like out of this world, I think, and very, very different from a lot of music, Christian music. They're not congregational songs, that's for sure. But they're they've worked really well for the purpose that they're there for. Leah, can I ask you about like your kind of, what was it like for you being involved in these songs? Like, would Jesse just say, right, here's the lyrics, like, let's go? I mean, what
pretty much
like?
Jesse did all the hard work, and I just got to come in and cry, sing and cry, and just sing the promises of the Lord from generations. It was very, I mean, Jesse, like I said, he did all the hard work, and I got to just come in and sing, and it was beautiful. It was so much fun for me just to sing what he had already done.
Could you tell? Oh, go on. Sorry.
No, you. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, could you tell there was sort of something special about these songs as you were kind of, reading them, singing them?
Yeah. I mean, early on in our marriage, I remember I had read wherever it is in the Bible, it's like, make every effort to like fulfill the Lord's calling in your life. And I remember thinking, okay, Lord, what is it? Like, what do I need to make every effort for? And it was just to encourage and support my husband in his writing. And so even before we were dating or married, I listened to Jesse's music often because I loved the way that he wrote. I loved the way that he poetically puts things. And so when I got to come and sing these songs in particular, I think the melodies, I mean, even he did all of it, really. The lyrics and the melody with the composition underneath, I just think that they're very captivating and somehow encompasses the tension and the beauty simultaneously in a really unique way. So I love the music to it.
And it was helpful because, of course, she was writing every Psalm songs while I was writing these.
Right.
So we would go and it was a really sweet partnership. I tell people we would never have finished that Psalm project if we didn't have the both of us. Because there'd be times where I'd be working, on Serpent Seed songs or just not have no creative flow, if you will, going, and she would come up to the studio. Oh, I wrote 3 songs today. It's like, all right, this is perfect timing. Thank you, Lord. So
amazing.
She had plenty of other things to do.
I remember a few of the songs where, like, well, particularly the 2 where you were singing, Leah, but Jesse would sort of do his take. Like he said, but you just have to imagine that this is in Leah's kind of sweet angel voice rather than mine.
Yeah. The demo is like, don't judge it off the demo. You won't want it.
No, but even those demos, like, honestly, so many times when I'd hear your songs, the first time you sent me, I think we chatted and you sent me, like, I just spent 5 minutes like doodling on the piano and how does this sound for like the track where you're exploring the garden, and like I was literally weeping in my chair thinking this is like so beautiful, and Jesse's just spent 5 minutes on this, and like but yeah, obviously all those songs, like it was just amazing hearing all of these songs for the very first time, and but yeah, I mean, it's just such a powerful experience when you then play through them. And do you want to talk about like the particular Bible passages that we like? I don't know if I've told you this. I had a real privilege of doing something with some non-Christian friends where they would play a chapter of the game at home, and then we would meet up to talk about it, and they'd sort of share their experiences, and then we would read some of the Bible passages behind what they played, and we did it over 3 weeks, and like they absolutely loved it. And I think, obviously the songs are just like an amazing way of engaging people in their emotions and things like that. But it was really interesting, like read those particular Bible passages. Like in some ways, they're obviously like really key kind of turning points in the big Bible story. Like Genesis 2 and 3, like very sort of foundational. The final week we did like Isaiah 53 for the crucifixion and Revelation 22. I don't think they're passages that I don't think I've ever been able to read those passages with a non-Christian before. Like they're such great passages for like explaining the sort of big sort of story arc of the gospel. Are they passages that you've been able to like explore musically before, or like what was it like for you kind of getting into those particular passages? We
have a long list of projects and ideas that we probably will never accomplish all of them. So even talking, she's talking about going through trees. I remember Leah coming to me once and said, what if we did a whole album centered around the trees and the moments that happen in and around those? But with that, the Isaiah passages, the Revelation 22 passage, we've talked about doing a whole record on Revelation. So there are snippets, I feel like, of songs on voice memos and in old hard drives of a lot of those. But it was a fun way to, sometimes I was telling Leah the other day with a different project, sometimes it's just great to have a deadline. And when you're like, hey, and because I think these songs, we were talking about it. We were talking with some friends the other day who had no clue this record had anything to do with a game. They just saw that we were coming out with a new record. And they're like, the titles on these songs, because if you look at the pre-save, you can see the titles of all the songs. And I said, well, just to let you know, most of them are instrumental. And the guy was like, oh, what? Oh, I didn't, why? And he had no clue. But the ones that we sing, I think stand on their own very well. And so I'm excited to be able to share them with people from even if they're not connected with the game. Obviously point them to the game, and the whole thing does, all of the everything we're putting out will point people to hopefully play. But I think that it was an exciting endeavor to get to do those passages, because it's passages we've talked about doing forever and hadn't come to the place yet to do them. So we're excited to be able to share them. I think it's really cool. I mean, this is true of all the music, but it's really cool getting to explore those passages as part of this kind of coherent whole. So you're not just sort of looking at Isaiah 53 in isolation, but there's all these echoes of echoes of the song from Genesis 3 of the fall. So just being able to tie all those passages together rather than just like in isolation.
From the parched ground came a root, a strong yet tender shoot. Despised, forsaken, the man of sorrows naked, and it all falls on him.
This probably is a great time to say, if you're watching this on the internet, it's because the soundtrack to the Serpent Seed is now available. What platforms is it on, Jesse? Is it just Spotify, or is it gonna be everywhere?
I mean, pretty much. It'll be on Apple, or Apple Music. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be basically any streaming platform. And then you can also go to our website, porpoisehoover.com. Everything that we have, all of our resources are downloadable for free. So if you want offline use, you can download all the music or listen to it via our website.
Amazing. So there you go. Go check it out. The Serpent and the Seed by Paul Bishop Hooper. And there is one track on the album which is not by these guys, and like it was really special to me. So our game was sort of really, for me, inspired by a game called Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, which is a really weird game, but it's constructed like they started with the music and they built this kind of game around it. Almost, they described it as like an interactive jukebox almost, but the music on that was by a guy called Jim Guthrie. And I'd for a long time I'd had this idea. It'd be really cool to like ask him to. There was one particular bit in the game which is more like a sort of arcade game, a kind of snake game with Moses, and I sort of had the idea to do it in a kind of chip tune, like retro video game style. So I just on a whim, I reached out to him and I said, Jim, like I'm a massive fan of your music and your game, and would you be willing to like take Paul Bishop Hooper's soundtrack and do a kind of chip tune cover of this one song? And to my absolute amazement, he said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. So that's on there as well. But it's just like
it's a cool one too.
Yeah, fun little kind of testament to the, or what's the word? Fun little reference to the kind of origins of the project. And yeah, what was it like for you coming back to this music after a little break to put that soundtrack together? Because I guess you've not listened to a lot of that music for quite a while when you came to put all that together. Like, what was that experience like?
It was super encouraging. I liked the music a lot more than I remember, even in the initial days. The trickiest thing was figuring out and feeling out how to make the songs stand alone as songs, because of course when I'm shipping them to you for the game, you can arrange the loops how you want in your system to go on forever or not. Well, this, when we were releasing the soundtrack, we have to actually put a beginning and an end to all these songs.
Yeah.
So it took a good amount of time, much more than I thought, to really feel out, how do these need to progress, and how do they need to end? And I leaned more on shorter for the sake of the repetition not getting redundant or boring, but I think they all are pretty fun. And again, was encouraged, particularly with Leah's singing on the vocal ones. We're excited to share all of it. I think there's some fun melodic moments throughout. There's some fun like percussive stuff going on that I enjoyed getting to revisit.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who's not played the game, that is one of the things that's really fun about the music. Is it's very kind of dynamic and like responds to what the player's doing. And like I remember like early on, one of the tracks is when you're helping Adam name some animals, and there's like this sort of bass track, but then each of the animals, there's like a different variation for that animal. And like I thought the sign early on that I knew this was working was we gave it to my like son. I don't know how old he was at the time, like 8 or 9, and like he was helping name these animals, and we got to the mandrill, and like the music for the mandrill is my favorite, and it like he was properly like boogieing around the kitchen like trying to pick names for this mandrill. It was really fun. Just like yeah, this is really working. So but yeah, I can imagine that being a particular challenge when then turning it into a more linear kind of soundtrack album.
Yeah, particularly that one. But there were a few that were a little more tricky than some of the others.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't want to remove all those moments, but we don't need animal noises for super long.
Yeah.
If you're just listening on Spotify or something.
Yeah, I thought I would just share a little bit of the feedback we've had about the music. So I think if you read through the app review, what's it called, App Store reviews about the Serpent Seed, like there's almost all of them call out the music as like it is amazing. We've just been named as a finalist for the TIGA Games Industry Awards here in the UK for audio design, which yes, for sure is about like the sounds and all that kind of stuff. But I think a massive part of what makes it stand out is the music. And so yeah, everyone is just like recognizing it. There was a review on a website called Seen and Unseen, and they call the songs like almost transcendent, which I think sums it up well. Like there really is something kind of otherworldly about the music, about some of these songs, and Uh, and I remember showing it off at I think it was a conference called Pocket Gamer. It was like the very first time I'd shared the game with like not just a Christian audience, but we shared a demo with like non-Christians um and this guy sort of he said to me afterwards, he was like, I never thought a game could make me cry. And like I think it was just that song about the fall, and you've sort of experienced this kind of joy and wonder of the garden, and then this song kicks in as they're kind of ripped out of the garden, and it is like just incredible. So yeah, I mean, thank you guys so much for all that you've done. It's just amazing, and I love that this exists now, and I think we're constantly tweaking the game to make it even better, and stuff. But like I love that this little kind of pocket of beauty is out there, and it's been a labor of love. I mean, it was like over four and a bit years of development. And I mean, for me, it's like been like 20 years of dreaming. So it's like it's been a long journey, but it's just amazing that it's there, and I think the results are just awesome. So I hope it's an encouragement to you how your music has touched people, and how people are responding to it.
Well, I don't know how you guys did it. I mean, that was the most of a taste that we've been to the back end of any of that stuff before. And it just made me realize how unbelievably time consuming and kind of needy that project was. We had the easy part. I mean, writing the music was the easy part. So bless you, Andy, as you poured your heart and soul into that thing, and it just gobbled hours and hours, I'm sure, for every little moment. So we're honored to be a part of it.
Yes.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, I felt honored to be a part of it. Like I said to Elise, my wife, at times, like it felt like it was less about us trying to sort of create or design this sort of game, and it I suppose particularly because it's like God's story that we're trying to figure out how can we communicate his story in a way that is faithful to him and that resonates with people. But it really felt like at times we were like archaeologists almost trying to sort of unearth this pre-existing thing, and like what shape does it take. And it felt really privileged to be a part of that. I have one final question for you guys, which is like, if people want to support what you're doing or follow along with your music, like what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, going to our website is probably the easiest, poorbishophooper.com. We give all of our resources and music away for free and just suggest that people donate. And so much like anything else, we're very grateful for people who decide to help us financially, but we appreciate prayer. We appreciate sharing what we're doing. I'm really bad at social media, but that's a really helpful way that a lot of people find out about what we're doing. So, all the whole like and share thing, that I guess I'm supposed to say to do that to help us, which I guess it does. But yeah, going to the website, check out what we're doing. We just hope our resources can be a blessing to people. And like Leah said earlier, point people to the Lord and to his beauty, and glorify him. So that's it. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. It's been really fun chatting and reminiscing about all of this, and I hope people really enjoy the soundtrack, which is out now, and it's been great. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Bless you.